Speaking of, should we do this right now, right here at the top of the program? Just a little comparison for comparison's sake. A couple of Tony Khan's, well, they're still on his wish list. We don't know until we see the people actually appear that everything's done, dusted, as they say over in the UK. But we talked about the rumors just a few days ago about is CM Punk coming to AEW? Is Bryan Danielson coming to AEW? And it's interesting. They've just, the videos have been on the YouTube a couple of days now. What, 48 hours, thereabouts?
Less than 48 hours.
Less than 48 hours. And CM Punk is outpacing, at least in our unofficial viewership survey, CM Punk is outpacing Bryan Danielson by what, about 35,000. The video that we discussed CM Punk is at 113,000 views. And the one where we discussed Bryan Danielson, Bry D, whatever, is only at 78,000. And I made mention to you before we went on the air today that that's interesting, but not surprising. And now everybody's going, oh, now he's going to fucking trash Bryan Danielson. No, I'm not. It just speaks to a point that we make a lot of times, that it doesn't matter in the overall scheme of popularity and recognition what the wrestler's technical ability is in the ring versus how many people know who the fuck they are and are familiar and or intrigued or interested by them, and or there is the nostalgia factor of how can I miss you if you won't go away. And both these play into effect here. Bryan Danielson is one of the greatest in-ring technical performers in the business. I don't think Punk would argue with that. I don't think Punk would argue and say, I'm a better technical wrestler than Bryan Danielson. But I think Punk could argue and would argue with some success that he's a bigger wrestling name to people who don't follow wrestling anymore than Daniel Bryan is right now. He's been in, not only was he in a hot period, not only was he pushed to the top, or in some cases clawed and scratched his way. The pipe bomb promo got a ton of interest, blah, 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 but he's crossed over to UFC. Even if it wasn't a great record, he still did it. People saw him in that environment. He's done horror movies, for fuck's sake.
Comic book stuff. He's been gone for, 6 or 7 years now, and they miss him because he went away. Did you see what Brian Solomon tweeted out? I never thought of it in these terms. It was pretty interesting. Punk has been away from wrestling as long as Bob Backlund was away after he left the WWF in 1984.
Wait a minute. Hold on here. I need to do that. We need to discuss that math. When did Bob Backlund come back?
He came back to the WWF. Again, he did some indie shows for Dennis and shit, but yeah, he came back to the WWF in 1992. Late 92.
Okay, was it that early? Okay, because I didn't remember him coming back until I was already there. Well, then that math probably does work. Or it may be, no, hold on. Punk's been gone 7 years. 84 to 92 would be 8 at least. 8.5 maybe.
It's almost the same amount of time.
That's no good. Brian Solomon spreading this fake news.
No.
We love Brian Solomon, and we're all going to be talking to him more with something he's working on. I don't know if I'm supposed to reveal that
I think you could say what he's doing, because I think the word is out and a lot of people are starting to anticipate it.
Okay, the first ever attempted even biography of the Sheik. And I've seen the advance manuscript, and I learned more in that one book than I've ever learned that I didn't already know about any other professional wrestling figure. Because the Sheik was the man of mystery, even to people who were around him. And he's done an incredible job of research. So I'll give Brian the fucking mathematical benefit of the doubt but it's comparable. And that was like an eternity. But see, here's the thing. A lot of good and bad shit happened in wrestling between 84 and 92. But at least it was so things happened and changed and etc. very quickly then, whereas in the last 7 years, things were kind of pretty much the shits, and they've just gotten a bit worse, haven't they? So it hasn't really seemed like that long.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like that long. And I guess also just the business doesn't seem like it's radically changed as much in these 7 years as it did between 84 and 92. Bob Backlund came back to a world of gimmicks. CM Punk comes back to a world of guys from the indie scene. I gotta say, too, you know what? With Punk and Bryan going in there, and I'm actually excited to see what's going to happen. And I hope AEW really does something with the two of them, because that really is the best thing they could do. Start with that. Just start with that. It'll be great. But it really does make me disappointed that Samoa Joe re-signed with WWE. Because imagine if you had Samoa Joe and Punk and Bryan Danielson in the mix. I think it'd be great. I think it's an interesting story because it ties back to Ring of Honor in, 2004? That would have been great, but Samoa Joe is with NXT.
Could you put Punk, Bryan, and Joe sort of like on Gilligan's Island in AEW, where they only can interact with each other? They're not allowed. And nobody else is allowed to speak to them. When they walk in the building, in the back door, the rest of the talent roster has to avert their eyes from them. And I would love that. And I would give AEW some rave reviews. But yeah, so far in the unofficial Cult of Cornette YouTube channel scoring, more people were interested in at least what we had to say about, or the concept of, or the prospect of, Punk returning, because he's more of the man of mystery. We talked about the Sheik. Everybody's been wondering. Everybody already knows that, and this is not a bad thing, that Bryan Danielson will wrestle whenever, wherever that he's capable and physically able to, because he loves the act of doing that. Whereas Punk burned out on it. It has not given a lot of indication over the last several years that he was really particularly interested in coming back to begin with, which created more interest for people to see him come back. So, and I'm not saying it wasn't genuine. I'm saying it happens to work out that way, that when somebody that people want to see do something gets tired of it and doesn't really want to fucking do it anymore, it creates turmoil amongst all those people that either want to see him do it, or in my case, don't want to see me. Can you imagine if I started milking every week? Yeah, I think I'm coming back to a certain promotion. My God, they'd have petitions out to every promotion in the world. No, you can't do that to us. Don't take it.